Hi everybody, Charisse here, tarot reader, ghost hunter, and witch to talk to you about my experience at Waverly Hills Sanatorium. While at Waverly Hills, I was very much in the moment and I didn't record enough cohesive footage to compile it into a nice little packaged episode. So instead, I'm doing it as kind of a story time, but don't worry, it's not just my face talking to you. I'm also going to be sprinkling in footage and evidence and EVPs and all that good stuff. So you definitely want to stay tuned. Waverly Hills, in case you don't know what it is a sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky that was built in, I think it was 1926, and closed its doors as a tuberculosis sanatorium in the late 50s, I believe. And at that point, it was converted to a home for elderly people, which then was closed in the early 80s. It sat abandoned until I think early 2000 when it was purchased to be restored and preserved, and you can investigate there. They also do daytime tours, just if you want to know about history and everything like that. It is a really awesome location. It is probably one of the, not probably, it's top 10 most haunted places in the United States, and it is probably top 5 locations on every ghost hunter and paranormal enthusiast list of places to go. It is that iconic. I think because of the history, thousands of people died at this place, unfortunately. Tuberculosis was a terrible, terrible thing that ravaged the country. So a ton of people died there. There was a lot of emotions there as well. So that tends to feed a haunting. But then the fact that this place was already pretty active with hauntings, and it has such a reputation, even people who have not been to this location are feeding this location with their thoughts about it and talking about it. It's constantly being fed a source of energy. And so I think that that kind of helps to keep the place alive spiritually and paranormally. So let's just jump right into it. I am looking at my notes here because a lot happened and I don't want to forget any of it. We began the night on the 5th floor with a triple Estes session. We also had Ernie, our Waverly Hills tour guide, with us because he really knows the history of this place. He knows a lot of specific names and information relating to former patients and employees. So we thought it would be really good to have him up there with us in case we gave any names or information that we weren't aware of that maybe he knew the story to. The Estes method, in case you're not familiar with it, is when you put on noise-canceling headphones plugged into a spirit box and you put on a blindfold, and the person listening to the spirit box says the words or phrases that they think that they are hearing through the spirit box. The point of this is the person listening to the box can't hear the questions being asked of them, so this helps kind of remove some of the bias. And the responses that we got were pretty crazy. This was such an amazing experiment, and it was just so much came through. There were so many layers as well. I believe we were getting conscious, direct responses, while also, and I thought this was really cool because I don't know if I've heard this being talked about before, we were picking up residual conversations because it sounded like a nurse speaking to a patient or just things that a patient might have said while they were there but didn't necessarily fit with the things being asked. So I thought that was a really cool moment of it. As well as at one point, I took myself out of the session and Deanna jumped in. And it was at that point, it kind of felt like they started connecting to more of like earth spirits than, spirits of the land than spirits that used to be flesh and blood humans. So it was really interesting. I'm going to upload the footage. I did set up my recorder and I filmed that whole session. So I am going to put that up as a separate video just because there was so much of that came through. It would make this video ridiculously long. After the Estes session, we then went downstairs to the lobby. And real quick before I get into that, Waverly Hills is known for its doppelgangers. So doppelgangers are, people aren't really sure. Are they ghosts? Are they spirits? Is it just energy? But it's when you see an image of somebody that you know, but it's not actually them. So you might see your friend standing in the doorway in front of you, only to then turn around and find out your friend is actually standing behind you, or they're on a completely different floor, and then you look back and that person is gone. So that's a really common thing here at Waverly. I was not aware that doppelganger voices are also a thing. all night long. We kind of separated into two groups. There were 11 of us. And Steve, who organized this, and his group, they were kind of together, and then myself and the people I was with. And all night long, I would hear, I'm like, oh, okay, that must be Steve and the other group coming to join us. And we'd wait a minute, and it wouldn't be them. And then we'd find out that they were several floors below us. And that happened all night, or we'd hear like shuffling and footsteps, and thinking again that it is flesh and blood humans. It wasn't them. And voices don't carry really easily in this place, which you'll find out in one of my other little story moments here. We literally screamed and they couldn't hear us in the building. So I feel it's pretty safe to say that the voices that we were hearing weren't their voices just being carried through the building. Not at all. Multiple times. I mean, I can't even stress how weird that was to hear. When we were doing the Estes session on the 5th floor, several different times, I went to the stairs expecting to see them coming up the stairs because I was hearing movement and footsteps and voices, and I look and it's not them, and they were on the 1st floor, we were on the 5th. That was pretty crazy. Anyway, we then made our way to the lobby with Ernie and our little group, and the lobby was said to have a more negative energy there. I didn't personally feel that negative energy, and that could be because I think it was Hannah from the other group. She felt like that energy was with her the whole night and just followed her around the building. So maybe that's why we didn't feel it when we were in there. In the lobby, there's sort of a stage, and then there's some chairs placed around. So Courtney was on one side, Ernie was on another, Fallon was next to Ernie. I was kind of sitting in front of the stage looking at Courtney and Ernie. And I see an actual orb with my eyeballs, and it was huge. It was probably about this big. And I just kind of see it light up and move just a tiny bit above Courtney's head behind her.
Yeah, and Fallon, if you get uncomfortable, we can... I just freaking saw a light again. It's not...
Who was hanging out by you?
My glasses. Like, because that reflection from my glasses doesn't make this perfect circle of a light.
Is it like misty?
No, it's just like a white... orb.
It's so cold.
Like, it looks like, you know, the orbs that you see in photos where it's like, okay, it's just dust, but it's bigger.
Who's hanging out behind me? If it is a person.
What?
I just saw it next to me.
What is that?
Carol?
Yeah, you just saw that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, right next to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the left of me.
It's funny because Steve said they were seeing lights in the lobby yesterday. I didn't want to say anything though.
I just saw that.
Yeah.
But that was pretty cool. And later in the night, we took a photo of Fallon in one of the hallways, and you see almost a beam of light coming at her. Now, it could be just some play of the light with the dust, because that place is pretty dusty. But the photo right before it, and I believe the photo right after it, don't have this beam of light coming at her head. And it's just interesting that it was so similar to the beam of light that we saw in the lobby. While we were in the lobby, we were hearing some footsteps and scuffling from different directions. And at one point, I take out my recorder to do an EVP session. You'll hear me say, "Is that you that we keep hearing?" And you hear something. It sounds male, possibly. We audibly heard that with our ears, though. So this isn't an actual EVP. This was a disembodied voice or sound. So I'll insert that here.
Is that you that we keep hearing?
So you be the judge of that. Let me know in the comments what you think that might have been saying, or if it was just a sound. Not sure. After the lobby, we then made our way to the 4th floor. At this point, I don't believe that Ernie was with us. And the 4th floor is really known for its shadows. So there's shadows everywhere in Waverly. They're really known for their apparitions, basically. They're shadow people. But the 4th floor, for some reason, is really, really known for shadow people walking in and out of the rooms, across the hallways, down the hallway. And we decided in my little group we were just going to kind of scatter ourselves in the hallway and sit down or stand and just kind of be quiet and just listen to hear if we hear anything, see if we see anything. We didn't have flashlights on. And so we're all kind of sitting there and we're hearing little random noises. I know Amanda at one point heard something in the room next to her. And the way Waverly is, there's the main hallway and then there's rooms on each side. And then on one of the sides, it's called the solarium, and it's almost like a balcony sort of thing. And so I was kind of on the outside of the hallway, if you will. And Courtney is standing next to one of the entrances to a room, and she says, "You guys, I think I see something." And so I stepped next to her, and I scared her to death, by the way. But she was so in the moment, she didn't want to overreact, so she's like, "Stop it." I got scolded by Courtney. So I'm standing there with her, and I look, and I instantly see what she's talking about. You see the head, the shoulders. You can't make out details or anything. Just classic shadow person figure. And it happened to be the same shape as what we believe is an apparition or a spirit there named William. And Ernie had shown us a photo earlier in the night that somebody had taken that they believe was William. And Ernie knew William back in the day. And he said that's exactly what William looked like, his shape. He was pretty tall, broad shoulders. And that's the shadow shape that we were seeing. And we kind of grab each other's arms, and Courtney calls out to the shadow and says, "You can come down here if you want. You can come closer to us." It starts moving, making its way closer towards us, and I'm grabbing Courtney's arm, and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is happening, this is happening." We were so excited, but at that exact moment, Steve and the other group come up the stairs, shining the flashlight, and there was so much action all of a sudden. I don't know if the shadow kind of like retreated, or if it just, poof, was gone. I don't really know, but we lost it. But here is a photo that Kennedy, who was with the other group, she took a photo, I believe this is the 4th floor, at some point in the night, and you can see at the end of the hallway what looks like it's either 2 shadow figures that I see, or it's one shadow figure that is so dense that it's almost creating its own shadow. But that is the exact same thing that Courtney and I had seen earlier in the night with the broad shoulders. You can see the legs. Absolutely amazing. That was one of the coolest moments ever. After that amazing moment, we went over into the operating room. The operating room is a very interesting energy, and unfortunately, the operating room saw probably more death than it cured people. You have to remember, back when tuberculosis was going on, they didn't have a cure. They didn't know what to do for this. And you'll hear a lot of really scary stories about Waverly, and some people really try to make it like these doctors were these terrible people doing all these scientific experiments. And yes, they were kind of doing these scientific experiments, but not to be cruel. They were genuinely trying to save people's lives. They just didn't know what they were doing because they didn't have the knowledge that doctors have now. So yes, some of the procedures that they did sound pretty barbaric and painful, and unfortunately they lost a lot of people. A lot of emotions in this operating room. You'll hear at one point we're discussing, I think we shout out, is there a doctor are you ready to scrub in? Are you ready for this surgery? If there's any patients or doctors in the hallway, you can come in. And we capture what I hear is a male voice. I'm not quite sure what it is saying. Maybe you can listen here and let me know in the comments what you think this is saying.
Yeah, unless it's a doctor or nurse, maybe. Yeah, unless it's a doctor or nurse, maybe.
Later, while we're in the operating room still, this was about 15 minutes later, we were talking about there's a door in the operating room, and I think it's where the doctors and nurses would, clean up before and after surgery. And one of us mentions, how crazy would it be if that door opens? And I believe it was Amanda said, "Can you open that door for us?" At which point I hear a female response. I'll tell you what I think it says after you listen to it.
The door.
I know, I thought about asking if they could open the door or something.
Did that K2 just light up, or was I seeing things? The door.
I know, I thought about asking if they could like open the door or something.
Did that K2 just light up, or was I seeing things?
I hear a female say something like, she tried to, something like that, as far as almost implying that, can you open that door? She was trying to. And it's at that moment, too, we didn't hear this voice. But right after you hear this EVP, I then say, was that the K2 that just lit up? So that's pretty compelling, I think, is to capture this EVP. We didn't hear it at the time. And then the K2 was going off as well. So I think that that's pretty cool. And that's really, I think, all that happened for us in the operating room. We then, at some point, made our way down to the body chute. So I was in the body chute. It was myself, Amanda, Courtney, and Fallon. And we decide, let's just kind of stand here. Let's just be quiet and see what happens. Now, the body chute in Waverly, if you don't know what this is, it was originally built, and a lot of hospitals and facilities have this. It was originally built to be able to transport equipment and supplies to and from the hospital. But when more and more people were dying all the time of tuberculosis, it was very disheartening for the patients trying to get better to see all of these hearses driving up to pick up bodies, to see bodies being wheeled out of the hospital. And so the staff decided maybe we should start wheeling the bodies down this body chute. And it's called the body chute, but it's not like they were throwing bodies down there. They were being wheeled down. This is, I think it's at a 45-degree angle, and it's 500 feet down. So it's a long, long tunnel. Very long tunnel. I didn't go all the way down because I didn't want to have to walk all the way back up. We're standing there, and we kind of all have our backs to the wall a little bit. And up at the top of where you enter into the body chute, there's a hallway and there's a door. And we're standing there, and I'm hearing shuffling and some footsteps, which I'll insert some audio here.
Oh, it's my echo. Yeah, it's the echo.
Now, those footsteps that you're hearing, this was not captured right before this incident that I'm going to tell you about happened. That was after we'd already calmed down from this incident. Either way, I didn't hear these footsteps that you just heard. I didn't hear those with my ears. I only heard those after listening to the recording. But so I'm standing against the wall, and I hear shuffling and some footsteps down the tunnel. So I'm looking this way, and it was right at that moment the door in the hallway slammed so loud and echoed down the body chute. We all screamed. And I'm going to insert that audio here. You might want, if you're listening with headphones or something, you might want to turn the volume down because, needless to say, our screams were quite loud. And that was me that you heard crying. I don't know. Somebody said, what was that? And I'm like, I don't know. I wasn't literally crying. But I remember I kind of like jumped down like this, like I was squatting almost, because I'm like, I don't know which direction to pay attention to because I just was hearing footsteps over here. The door slammed over here. I don't know what to do. We were all panicked. God love them. Courtney and Amanda ran to the door to see what it was. Come to find out, it was the emergency exit door. Nobody had come in or out of that area at that time. The other group was way on the other side of the hospital, up on, I think, the 4th floor. They didn't hear us screaming, and we screamed loud, and it was echoing, and nobody heard us, and so that was kind of scary. But that was one of the coolest things ever. That was, I think, probably the most scared I've ever been on an investigation. I think that has taken first place. First place used to be when I was in an abandoned hospital, tuberculosis hospital, actually, here in Ohio, years and years and years ago. And we're walking through the basement in the dark, and I'm in the front, and a cop jumped out from around the corner with a flashlight and his gun drawn, pointed at me, and I screamed and I cussed, and that was the most scared I've ever been on an investigation. But I think this Waverly Hills door slamming, it at least ties with that one. So funny that both my scariest moments have been in tuberculosis hospitals. After we hear the door slam shut, that just kind of, that was about, I think, 2:45 a.m. when the door slammed shut. That kind of set off this flurry of activity. So we hung out in the body chute for a little while longer. We heard more shuffling and things like that, but nothing too crazy. So we leave the body chute and we're going to make our way up to one of the other floors. And we walk through the lobby and we get to the stairs to start ascending. And we hear, this will haunt me till the day I die, we hear two females giggling. And we hear metal dragging right at that time. So we all freeze and we stop. And we're like, do you hear that? To me, it sounded like it was coming from down the hall. One of us thought it was coming from above us. So we stopped to listen. That noise stops. But subsequently, we hear on the floors above us, we hear shuffling and doors shutting and like what I thought was a male making a sound. It was just activity after sound. And again, we thought logically, okay, that must be the other group. We yell out to them, hello, is that you guys? We even go back down the hall because we thought, oh, that sounds like it was from the body chute. That must be them, the other group, in the body chute or in the morgue. And we're like, we just came from there. They weren't there. We went down there just to double check anyway.
This is it? Yeah. It doesn't look sounded like this kind of shit, yeah. Here.
I thought he said that those don't pull out anymore,
This
though.
one does.
Was that it?
That doesn't sound right, but it sounded like this, like rolling or something, like that kind of noise. Like,
Well, why don't we roll that? Does it have? It has wheels. No, it doesn't sound like. So they must have upstairs.
What was that? Was that you? That sounded like a water bottle popping. Do you have a water bottle in your purse? No. Oh, that, okay.
Okay.
Huh.
It seems like it's sending us on a wild goose chase.
yeah, should we try to walk again
I'm
and see
sorry.
what happens?
Yeah. Sorry. Do you want to go first?
We can walk and joke.
God.
Would
Yes.
that be it?
Yeah, something more like that.
Yeah.
Let me take a picture.
Yeah, it was definitely more. But it would have been more like it going. Oh, wait till you take your picture. It would be more like it was like.
And it was two.
It was two women. Yeah, two like. Okay, here, let's do it. 1, 2, 3, giggle.
I mean, we were joking around as we came through
Yes.
all those doors, so they're probably like,
Ew, were they
Wait, and
mimicking
didn't
us?
the, oh my god.
And then that door.
And we didn't even think anything of it. We were like, that's just how like the door.
Oh, I have such goosebumps right now.
It wasn't them. We don't know who was making these sounds, what was making these sounds. We just know for a fact that it was not the other group, which was pretty crazy. I'm going to show you a snippet of this video here in just a moment, but I almost hesitate to share it because it is a potential orb, and I say that with some contempt because I usually feel pretty strongly that orbs are just dust particles, light reflections, things that can be logically explained, like just there you see a dust orb flying past the screen. However, the orb in this upcoming footage is much brighter than the other orbs throughout the rest of the video, and if you've noticed, these other orbs are flying just straight past the camera in one direction. This other orb seems to come into frame as if saying hello, and then it leaves the frame in the same direction that it came in, which is kind of interesting movement, but again, I am not prepared to say that this is paranormal. I'm just including it because it is a little interesting, and I know some people really, really love orb footage, so you can be the judge of this.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah, and then we started laughing about that. And I was like, oh, there's a Scooby-Doo move, because I've been seeing this down there.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah, and then we started laughing about that. And I was like, oh, there's a Scooby-Doo move, because I've been seeing this down there.
Then we go to the lobby. Amanda sets down her REM pod, and I'll insert this footage here.
We're getting stuff in lobby, so I think we're gonna hang out here for a minute. Can you touch the metal rod that's on this?
The REM pod started going nuts, and that was the only time throughout the night that it did this. And then it pretty much stopped. As quick as that activity happened, it stopped. Was it paranormal? I would like to say yes, just because of when this REM pod was going off. This was right after the flurry of activity had happened. I would like to think that it's paranormal, but who knows? To close out the evening, Amanda, Courtney, and I did the Waverly walkthrough. Technically, the Waverly walkthrough is supposed to be a solo event with no flashlight, just yourself, going up the first floor, walking all the way down, going up to the second, walking all the way down, and you do that crisscrossing all the way up and then crisscrossing all the way back down, all 5 floors by yourself. After that flurry of activity, the door slamming, the giggling, and all of that, I'm not ashamed to admit that we were a little too nervous to do this walkthrough by ourselves. Anyway, so we're doing the walkthrough, and we find out, because we have walkies, we find out that Steve and 2 other people were on several floors above us. So we knew that at some point we'd be crossing each other's paths, because they were coming down as we were going up. We're walking, we're like, oh, okay, that's them, because they were approaching us from the hallway, from the opposite end. Courtney and I, it was Amanda, myself, and Courtney, and then Steve and the other 2 were approaching us. We're walking, we're like, oh, that's you guys. Is that you guys? Courtney and I, clear as day, it sounds like it was from one of the rooms next to Courtney. We hear, me, or it's me, or something like that, but we hear clear as day a female say, me, to the point that we ask Steve, is there a female with you? And he says, yeah. We're like, oh, okay, that was her. He's like, she didn't say anything. And she immediately responds, I didn't say anything. Interesting. So I'm going to play that here.
Is that you guys? Yeah. Okay. Although we thought we heard some footsteps and maybe a shadow in the hall here. Who's all? Who's? Was that a female that just said me? Are you guys with a female? We have one. Oh, okay. I was like, because I cleared today. She didn't just. We just heard a me.
I love that Waverly Hills provided classic EVPs as well as disembodied voices that we were able to capture on our devices. I still can't get over how absolutely clear that me was. And I don't know, Amanda was standing right next to me. I don't know how she didn't hear it. The others didn't hear it. Clear as day. Then, progressing down the hall, Steve and them went down and we made our ways up more floors. There is a breath that I hear, and I'm not quite ready to say that this was paranormal because it could have been us breathing. However, I listened to the whole audio because I had my recorder going while we were doing this walkthrough. I listened to the whole audio. I heard us breathing throughout this. I think it was a 25-minute audio. I heard us breathing throughout the whole thing. Not once did I hear any of us breathe in this way. So I'm not sure if it's a breath or if it's just a very breathy whisper, but I'll let you be the judge of what you might think that this is.
Okay, so we need to go this way. We're really at we're on the third down, yeah. Wait, are we?
Yes.
We're on the third down. 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 We're on the third down.
And to finish our night off, Amanda, Courtney, and I made our way to the 5th floor, and that is where we had done the Estes session earlier in the night. So it was kind of nice. We got to begin our night on the 5th floor and end our night on the 5th floor. And you'll hear, when I was listening back on my headphones and the recorder, I heard what I hear is a male whisper. And then when I put it onto my computer to isolate that, I heard what sounds to me like the same male voice prior to the voice that I heard. So I'm going to play both of those. So you'll hear Courtney, Amanda, and I kind of talking, and then you'll hear a male whisper, and I'll play that 3 times, and then you'll hear us continuing to talk, and then you'll hear the second male whisper, which is much clearer, and I'll play that 3 times.
Oh, this is the, oh, this is the, oh, this is the, oh, this is the original Sunset.
The original.
The original Sunset.
Oh,
The
weird.
original sunset.
Swing set.
Oh.
Is that like a closet?
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah, that's on 502 listing.
Let me know what you think you hear. I'm not quite sure what the first whisper says. To me, it definitely sounds like the same voice as the second whisper. The second whisper says, come back, or will you be back, or I'm back, something like that. I definitely hear back. So let me know what you hear. All in all, Waverly was amazing. We all want to go back already. I'm only 3.5 hours from Waverly, so I'm considering going down and just booking one of their daytime tours because all of their nighttime investigations are booked up and it's pricey. So I think I'm going to go down and just do a daytime walkthrough and take some extra pictures, and maybe I'll capture an EVP or 2, but I need to go back. It was amazing, and hope you enjoyed this story time with evidence.